Water District Engineering and Operations Committee, as well as a special meeting of the Board of Directors. So with that, Mr. General Manager, could you see if we have a quorum?
Director Harold Williams.
Here.
Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Don Deere.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Great. Just a comment to start off. I have to apologize, but today we are on a short time schedule. We will wrap up this meeting up by 4 p.m.
Understood.
Okay, so next item up is public comment. Do we have any?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If anybody would like to make public comment, please indicate so now by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any request for public comment.
Okay, next item's up is presentations, and I don't believe we have any, but can we confirm that?
That is correct.
Okay. So we will move on to our action calendar, and the first item up is, and only item, is procurement of the reverse osmosis concentrate valves at the Torrance Refinery Water Recycling Plant. So, Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce that item?
After do so, this first item begins on packet page 3. And for this presentation, we have Jason Cohn, our operations analyst 2.
Thanks, AJ. Good afternoon, directors. You may turn to page 3 of your packet if you'd like. The Torrance Refinery Water Recycling Plant treats the disinfected tertiary and enriched little plant to produce 2 types of recycled water, as you are aware, for the Torrance Refinery, one for their cooling towers and another for their boiler feed units. The boiler feed water requires use of a reverse osmosis treatment process. And the purpose of the 4 treatment trains that compose that treatment process at Torrance is to remove dissolved solids to meet customer specifications. And the effectiveness of the RO train is measured by the recovery rate or the percentage of permeate flow to the overall feed flow to the train. And the concentrate control valve in each RO train and its ability to accurately modulate positions between 0 to 100% is key to maintaining the flow and pressure of the reject brine. Having the ability to set stable recovery with the CCV or concentrate control valve is integral to RO operation and is required for producing acceptable water quality, various set points based on refinery demand, and of course, the regular cleaning process of the RO trains. Due to the high salinity of the brine and the corrosive environment it creates, each of the 4 concentrate valves and its accompanying actuators are extensively corroded. The CCV of RO Train 2 failed towards the end of September 2023, and without it, the RO train is inoperable. With RO Train 2 offline, operators are unable to perform proper cleaning of the remaining RO membranes, which in turn impacts product water quality. Following a flooding incident in 2010, the valves and actuators were repaired and replaced at that time and have since been in continuous operation. West Basin and Veolia teams researched and discussed with various vendors utilizing a different type of valve than the existing, but due to the unique configuration and dimension of the RO trains, extensive piping modification was required for that. West Basin also consulted with SPI, our RO membrane experts, who agree that the CCVs are in critical condition and in need of replacements. They were also able to provide the original spec and manufacturing information. Fisher, the existing valve and actuator OEM, would be able to manufacture with them with a 24-week lead time. And because of that, Veolia has already ordered the replacement of the RO Train 2 CCV while waiting for the temporary repairs to be completed in the meantime. West Basin staff is recommending the in-kind replacement of 3 other concentrate valves to mitigate the risk of production loss and inability to meet contractual demands. In-kind replacement will facilitate a quick and efficient changeout and will remove the need for pipe reconfiguration and ancillary purchases. Staff's solicited quote from Caltrol Inc., the only distributor of the Fisher valves, is included as attachment A or in page 6 of your packet. The total cost of 3 Fisher sliding stem valves and actuators is in the amount of $94,401. Because Caltrol Inc. is the exclusive independent representative for Fisher products, sole source procurement is recommended per the West Basin Administrative Code, section 5-2.103, subsection F2. Sole source letter is included as well. Caltrol included as attachment B or packet page 13. And with that, I'd like to read the recommendation, answer any questions you have after, which is staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to to purchase 3 concentrate valves and actuators from Caltrol Inc. for an amount not to exceed of $94,401, including freight and sales tax. Thank you.
That concludes the report.
Yeah.
Okay. So Director Williams, do you have any questions?
I'll have a question for the general manager. Is there any other option?
So we believe that this is the best option, and it's important to note that it is clearly stated in the fiscal impact in the report that under the new Torrance Refinery agreement, that funds for this has been secured.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Deere, do you have any questions? Director Gray, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of clarifications. I think you mentioned in your staff report that Viola is the one that made the recommendation and already ordered some equipment. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. So there's 4 trains, one of which has already failed. And so because of the long lead time, we've begun the repairs for 1 concentrate control valve. The other 3 we'll have to order. Excuse me, but the recommendation for using the same manufacturer was from SPI, not Veolia.
Okay. But they went ahead already and ordered one.
Repair. Or started the repairs. And the replacement, yes, sorry.
So why are then not having, since they've already done this, not have them purchase the other 3?
We'd like to just be fiscally responsible and order them as all 3 together through the district instead.
Couldn't they have done that?
It exceeds their dollar limit to do so.
There is a cap on what they could order, a dollar cap. And ordering 3 valves would exceed the dollar cap too. In addition, they would charge 12% for every purchase that they would make.
That's the answer I was looking for. Thank you. That they do mark up everything that they purchase. So when they ordered that first unit, since we're paying the 12% markup, couldn't they have just come to the district and asked the district to do it?
It's an option, yes, but I think because of the long lead time, we want to get a head start on ordering them. And it falls below the threshold that they can order.
But the district could have done it 2 at the time.
Right.
And save the 12% mark.
Right.
So we might want to think about that in the future.
Absolutely.
The other item, I think General Manager addressed it. This is all already, in terms of the payment for it, is part of what Torrance Refinery is going to be.
That is correct under our new existing agreement with the Torrance Refinery.
All right, I don't have any other questions, so with that, we will move this on.
I concur.
Thank you. Next item is the information calendar. And for the information calendar, we are gonna take, one item, out of order, and that will be, we're gonna, do the monthly engineering report first. And then we'll proceed with the, remainder of the, information calendar, as much of it as we have time, before 4 o'clock. I think you probably get through, all of it today. But with that, Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce the engineering report?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, the item before you is item 6C, our monthly engineering report. And I'm going to hand it off to our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations, Mr. Barkov Nasrallian, for this presentation, along with our fabulous engineering team.
Thank you, EJ. Board members, the monthly engineering staff report starts on next page number 90. You'll see on the staff report, there's some updates on several projects, but we do have a presentation to go through key projects here today. Three in particular, we want to give run through some slides for, but I want to point out that the descriptions on packet page 90 and 91, there is one change on the Nash Street lateral project. We had a meeting with the construction team yesterday, and the connection to 42-inch pipe in El Segundo Boulevard, that's been moved to January 22nd to start initial activities on the connection. There's still some items that we are waiting for them to submit, and so that date has changed in what's written here in the staff report. So moving on to the presentation itself, that starts on packet page. Let's go to packet page 96. And that's, we start off these presentations by a look ahead on some of the key items that might be coming into the E&O committee next month. We want to come back to the committee with some options for the DCS system improvements. We've talked about, we've discussed potential options in the past. This is a very critical rehab project for the recycled water operation. And we plan on coming back and discussing some options for it. The phase 2 expansion project, we've after this agenda was published, there has been some recent events that will update the board at the next board meeting. And we feel like we will not be coming in February with this item, but rather in later months. Met Service Connection WB 23A, that's the service connection that Metropolitan has been in design phase for a while. Their design is wrapping up and getting ready to execute in an agreement to start the construction phase. So we feel like we're almost there, and we're going to have the documentation ready to come in at the next committee to discuss that. And again, that's a service connection from Metropolitan to Golden State Water. With that, I'll hand it over to our engineering supervisor, Veronica Govea, to give an update on the PV lateral project.
Thank you, Bernadette. You can please follow me to page 98 document. I'll start with the construction schedule. This is for the pipeline extension. There hasn't been any changes. We in the process of moving through the city of Torrance and also now in the city of Palos Verdes stage. So there are multiple locations on the construction that is ongoing, and for some reason there's a lot of canvassing that is happening along the way depending on where the construction is happening. But right now we're still looking at the original schedule as completion later on this year in the spring. You can please follow me to the next page. So this had a cutoff on the dates and the I guess guidelines that we utilize to get into this information here as of January 2nd. So right now, as of that day, we had spent 164 calendar days. We just got our first invoice. It's still under review. And right now we're up to date on getting all the RFIs and submittals turned around very quickly. Into the next page, please. So these are some photos for the construction that was happening for the jack and board at Anza Avenue. The operation has been completed and the streets has been restored. So this particular construction took approximately like weeks, and they were able to complete it around the Thanksgiving week. Into the next page, please. These are also some of the other constructions that are going on the different streets. These, the number 2 are basically the same location or same proximity. And this is a pipeline that is being installed on a private alley for which we have an easement. So that private alley helps us to go from the city of Torrance to the Palos Verdes Estates. And basically that construction work took place also over the last month and has been completed too. The picture on with number 3, it's basically some of the starting of the Torrance Utility Road to get through the pipeline to get lined up for the directional drilling, for which we actually had a field meeting today to go over the details of what is coming on the next weeks for the directional drilling on Torrance Utility Road. Into the next picture, next page, please. This is on Newton Street in the city of Torrance. And this is by, what is the school? Richardson Middle School. And what the contractor was trying to do was like to get out of the way during the winter time to facilitate access once the school was back on track in January. So they are still doing construction on the neighborhood streets, but they have been out now from that neighborhood of that particular school entrance. To the next page, please. Okay, so now I'm moving more into on this slide with the crafts that have been identified for this particular pipeline project. And as you can see, there are few tiers that will be utilized, and some of them are already being used. So the project in regards to tiers or to fields that are being used are mostly right now like laborer, the operating engineer, and surveyors. Surveyors actually took place a little bit earlier, but again, throughout the installation of the pipeline and other facilities that are being installed as part of the project, these tiers do come in. For example, once we go into the master meter, you will see the electrician coming in place, and that will basically help on shaping out the numbers for the PLA, which the shaping out the numbers, basically you can go to the next page. You can see a summary of where we are as of what is it? This was for the report from November, and basically we were still below on tier 1, which is the local tier of PLA goals at a 13.3% versus the 3% goal that we're trying to achieve. At risk is still like trying to build up, still was very low. The apprentices was being successful, and as the project has been advanced, these numbers have become greater and are in the process of being met. But again, because by the time that we publish this information and we get the monthly reports, there's going to be always like a little bit of lag from what we're reporting from the previous months. So these are months where we basically were moving on to the pipeline project construction areas. So there's still a lot of tiers that haven't been shown in these summaries. To the next page. This is just a summary of the percent usage on labor by division. And next page. For the pump station, so we have awarded the pump station. We went through the contractual procedures and those have been completed. And now we were just completing final conversations with the city of Torrance to make sure that we wouldn't be stuck trying to get a permit. And those conversations are basically checking out to us getting the permit and us being able to issue the notice to proceed to the contractor, which is coming on the by the end of this month, which is going to be issued. To the next page, please. So this right here is just a summary of the budget that has been approved. I want to mention that tomorrow on communications committee or communications department is going to be doing a presentation on the construction outreach that has been done for the project, which has been extensive. We have had additional requests by cities to do presentation or other stakeholders to do additional presentations at various times, and also additional canvassing, additional release of information and things that were definitely a factor in which is resulting into an additional cost increase for communication outreach. We still have the pump station. We have had several, conversations with some of the public that has had either have questions or have had an issue that has been addressed by our communications outreach team, which is Mercado Communications. They have been doing a very good job on communicating quickly, responding to any question that the resident or any other stakeholder had, and being able to report back to us so we can help them on getting the responses back. So yes, there has been some, questions, comments of all sort, but our communications outreach has been doing a good job of maintaining the conversation with residents and maintaining informed. So they have been pleased with what we are doing. Again, tomorrow, our public information team is going to be presenting our item requesting an additional increase for the budget.
And Veronica, if I could add to that, as she mentioned, this will be taken to the Public Information Education Committee, where staff will be seeking an amendment to that agreement. I did want to let the committee know that I actually just this past Friday had the opportunity to drive the alignment and stopped at several sections of where the construction was occurring. Specifically, and I know it's on packet page 101, the construction crossing from Las Tortugas in the city of Torrance. I actually got out, had a chance to meet with several of the neighbors. One of the comments specifically that was conveyed to me was that they're very pleased to get the notice out as soon as as possible. They were well aware of the construction that was going to be on a very tight residential street at a very early time as far as planning. Secondly, they mentioned how this construction crew that's out there has been doing an excellent job of keeping their sidewalks and streets clean. There's cars coming in and out. There's staff there to help guide traffic through. And some of the road work that's been done actually pops up onto the sidewalk, but they immediately sweep it. And then last but not least, I was very impressed to hear that a woman that lives on that street was trying to move some furniture into a truck by herself. And she said that the entire crew ran over and helped her immediately lift it up into her truck. And so she was very impressed with the people that we have out there working. But I want to point that out because that's kind of the tone that we set. And obviously our outreach team is a big part of that. So you will see that item tomorrow at Public Information Education. But I want to thank Veronica for bringing that up now.
So since we're on that topic, and tomorrow it's going to be presented at the Public Information and Education Committee. How much additional money are we looking at?
Yes, so the additional money is a total $105,000, what is being basically requested. It's includes the percent contingency that is being added as a buffer in case that it's needed.
And do you think, since it's still fairly early in the progress of the construction, do you think there may be a need to come back one more time beyond this?
For construction outreach, hopefully not, since we're a little bit, more advanced on the pipeline component, and the pump station is about to start. So I could see, that there's going to be a lot of responses from public once we get started, but that's why we are adding, additional money to that. There has been also delays on getting our permits done, which basically elongates the situation with all of our consultants. It's not just the community outreach that now has to, stay there longer, but like also construction management or designer. I think everybody's trying to, is mindful of the budget. So we're trying to do the best that we can to manage that. But it's those unforeseen situations in which we just haven't been given plans quick enough to be able to produce and get out for bid because of the long process that is taking for several entities, not just one, but several entities to permit those plans. So hopefully, we're gonna do our best, but again, there could be a chance that because of that time, could be an additional.
Mr. Chairman, We have added a contingency on the requested funds for the remainder of the scope. We're actively looking at cost reductions. We're reducing the number of internal team meetings. So we have been, because of the initial launch of the construction, and we actually show in the presentation, which is included in the Public Information Education Committee update, you can see that there was a significant increase in costs at the initial start of that construction, getting the notices out, meeting with all the different team partners. We think that that won't be as crucial moving forward. We'll meet less frequently, but communicate via email. And we feel confident that we can get the work done with the request that's being brought to the Public Information Education Committee, which ultimately, depending on the committee, will go to the full board.
Okay. All right, so that's kind of the public outreach consultant component, but you also mentioned that it might impact CM and engineering services.
Not yet. I hope, and hopefully we can maintain those,
Why should delay in a permit impact CM services, for example?
For example, the construction management team was hired to do both the pump station and the pipeline. And the pipeline started, so we were able to move forward and start that construction. However, for the pump station, we have to wait for several entities to approve plans, because there was, for example, El County Flood Control District, City of Torrance, who had utilities that are kind of co-joined, so they need to make sure that one approves and the other one. So there's a lot of back and forth that we need to be doing. There were easements that we needed to address and all that. So that basically elongates the starting of the pump station, which could be that by elongating that time, now we need to stay a little bit longer. And yes, I know we do have a budget, one for pump station and one for the pipeline. But again, there's could be also, that overhead or something that could come out. We did add additional time for the completion of the pipeline because of requests being done by contractors. That there was some long lead items that needed additional time to be added.
So, a couple follow-up questions. It seems like the delay is driven by permitting for the pump station. Is that correct? Can't you start the pump station? Are the permits required prior to starting the pump station work?
If we issue a notice to proceed and the permit, it hasn't been finalized, like the contractor at the end of the day is gonna come in and obtain the final encroachment permit. So basically what we do, we're opening the permit for the contractor, so the contractor can come in and get the permits. By moving forward with that and not having that, we risk the potential to now have a contractor on delay mode, because now they were ready to start and a permit hasn't been approved because there's still something that is being in the process of being approved by others. And also you have another team that is kind of on waiting for that, kickoff. So what we are doing, being mindful of that, we are trying to minimize that impact by making sure that all the items have been satisfied and that we get the correct, goes, so that way we can issue the proper notice to proceed so the contractor can move forward. As I mentioned, there were a couple of items that were like the last two items that we were having the conversations over the last few months, basically was the catch basins and as well as the easements. So those have been, finalized. We submitted the milers, so it seems like the cities and other permitting agencies have been okay with that. So right now we're in a point in which we are confident to issue a notice to proceed by the end of the month, provided that they have given us those check marks that yes, we have all the documentation ready to go and it will be okay to move forward.
So for the pump station, you have not issued the notice to proceed?
No.
You're waiting. So is the CM services already being in place and we are incurring expense?
Not yet.
But we're,
We're waiting.
I believe, Director, you brought this up at the last committee meeting as well. We are in pending discussion with the CM services the CM Services contract accounted for both packages to have some flexibility. One could lag the other. So the flexibility that's in the contract is between 12 to 14 months. With the pump station going out to bid twice and for us to kind of, and the permit delays, if you will, we're at month 15. So we're currently in discussion with the CM Services consultant to see how we can recoup that month and make sure that we have enough budget to continue on. But any further delay could make that argument more difficult to have with a consultant. But we're certainly having those discussions with our CM Service.
So right now, you're expecting, I heard you correctly, that the delay in the permit is probably going to delay the completion of the pump station by 2 months.
So,
Permit plus our rebidding of the bid, because we
Right.
one bid. Yeah, those two are the primary reasons for the overall delay.
so the schedule that we have shown is basically taking into account already those delays. So that's what shows right now as of October 2024, or expectation date, with all taking into account these delays.
So as of today, October 24th will be the completion date.
That's our expectation.
And that's 2 months more than you originally planned.
One on the CM Services contract is 1 month over the CM Services, but 2 months over the original schedule.
In terms of resident engineering services or inspection services, they're not providing those until the actual construction starts. So that would be an area that theoretically we're not incurring expenses on, or are we?
Yeah, we have maintained our pump station separate from the pipeline fee schedule, so that way we can monitor better the activities on each project, basically, to help identify these kind of situations. And also, we do have contingency that was built up at the beginning of the project. It's, it's pretty good amount contingency for the overall project. So we're hoping, that with all this, the pluses and minuses within budget. That's our expectation. Again, these are right now the situations that we have.
Let's make it a goal to save our contingencies.
We'll do.
All right, keep going.
Okay, and I think that was the last slide. That
Thank you,
concludes.
Rob. Thank you, Veronica. Next up, we have a brief update from our engineer, Camille Castillo, on the fill station.
Thank you, Board Kev. Good afternoon, members of the committee. I will provide you a brief update on the recycled water fill station project and Title 22 permit update. As a reminder, we submitted the anti-degradation analysis last month in December with the help of Woodard and Curran, who helped prepare it. We have not received any response from Regional Water Quality Control Board just yet. We expect to by the end of the month. In the meantime, we are working with Woodard and Curran to develop our Title 22 permit update. So we received the draft and we are currently reviewing, and we have a comment workshop scheduled for next week. So on the next packet, page 110, you'll see that the next steps are awaiting the Regional Water Quality Control Board response. And if they do approve, then we'll be able to move forward to scheduling an opening day. Otherwise, if we get further comments, we'll have to respond to those comments as well. That you can ask any questions about it.
But I thought we had the fill station was actually in service now.
No, we cannot serve, it's constructed, it's ready to operate. We cannot operate until we have the regulatory approval. And so that's what we've been waiting to literally turn it on and service customers, because we need the approval from Regional Water Quality Control Board.
All right,
You thought it was gonna be easy.
I think we made this probably much more complicated, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Any other questions about fill station?
Let's move on.
Next up, we have an update on South Bay I-405 auxiliary lane project. And for this update, we're happy to introduce our engineering intern, Vincent Valparaiso. Vincent joined the district last summer. Is a UCI grad, and today is really going to be his last day at West Basin as he's accepted a job offer from JIG Consultants out of Anaheim. So we're happy. Vincent, thank you for joining West Basin and helping us out here. And I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about this project.
Kev. Good
So,
afternoon.
before you get started, you've been here for about a year
About 6 months.
or 6 months. So how have you enjoyed it? Since you're moving on now, by the way, congratulations.
I actually really enjoyed it. I think I was very fortunate to work under a lot of really good engineers here. And I think I got a diverse experience, whether it was construction inspections or technical report writing, cost analysis. So I think it'll translate to my next position for sure.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and give an update on the South Bay 405 Auxiliary Lanes project. Caltrans is currently finalizing design for their I-405 Auxiliary Lanes Improvements project, where there will be bridge widening at various locations along the 405 between Artesia and the 105. In order to support these bridge widening structures, they will have to install new piles. All of the construction is within the Caltrans right-of-way, and utility owners are to comply with Caltrans guidelines. Next slide, please. West Basin currently operates a 42-inch diameter recycled water pipeline. As you can see on the drawing on the right in the blue dotted line, since it is recycled water, it is considered a high priority utility. Per Caltrans guidelines, any utility that's within 5 feet of separation from the proposed footing, relocation is required. Tetra Tech, our design consultant for this project, has determined that a pipeline encasement is sufficient enough to protect our pipe for or through Caltrans construction and seismic activity. Both of the encasements will be on Marine Avenue where the 405 crosses. All of the construction will be in Caltrans right of way. However, the traffic control will leak into the right of way of Redondo Beach, Hawthorne, and Lawndale. West Basin is responsible for the excavation, the installation of both encasements, the restoration of the street, and traffic control. Next slide, please. So this is the seismic analysis that was provided to us by HDR, who is a Caltrans design consultant. I do want to point out one thing. On the last slide, it was a 3 feet 6 inch separation from our 42-inch pipeline. And I do want to point out that although it does say 42-inch recycled water pipeline, both of these drawings do take into consideration the 60-inch encasement that we are proposing, which is why the separation is only 2 feet and 10 inches from the new proposed pile. On the right side, we have a depiction of the seismic analysis. We can see HDR calculated that a maximum deflection near the top of the pipe to be 0.37 inches and a minimum deflection of 0.20 inches. Next slide, please. Per AWWA M11, the allowable deflection would be 3% of the inside diameter of the encasement. As seen from the last slide, the maximum seismic load deflection calculated by HDR would be 0.37 inches. And Tetra Tech has calculated that the deflection from the fill, dead load, and live load to be 0.4739 inches, which would give us a total of 0.8439. Which is 1.3% of the inside diameter of the encasement. The drawing on the below is a plan view of the proposed piles from Caltrans, as well as the proposed encasements that we are proposing. Next slide, please. So Tetra Tech has completed the preliminary design. We have submitted a waiver package for the relocation to Caltrans on January 2nd of 2024. Which included an exemption letter, application, preliminary plans, and we expect a 30 to 60-day review process from Caltrans. If approved, the next steps will be to finalize design, complete construction bid package, solicitation, and award and construct. On the right side, we have the steel split casing detail. On the top, we see a cross-sectional view of the encasement and the pipeline, as well as the bottom shows how the installation of the encasement will work with 2 pieces being welded together. At this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Director Williams, do you have any questions?
Question to engineer in charge. This young man is going to be leaving. Do you have someone on our staff that's capable of replacing him? He sounds like he's not an intern. He sounds like a
Gonna miss it.
very competent person. So we're gonna have someone to,
Good try.
if not, we can't let him go.
We're gonna miss Vincent dearly yet.
So, but seriously, is there gonna be someone to replace him? Keep up with this project?
Director Williams, we actually have another staff member that is in charge of this project. It's important to note that what we have incorporated into our intern program is kind of to bring on everybody annually. So all of our interns are brought in at the same time. They go through the same interview process. We have interns assigned to each of the different departments. They meet together and collaborate, kind of learn about what each of them is doing, so they get that well-rounded experience. With the loss of Vincent, what we plan to do is at the end of this fiscal year, we'll be going through that same process. We're hoping that all of our interns have full-time jobs by then, but we'll be going through that same process. And so Vincent's intern position will be filled through that process.
And one of the things the general manager forgot to say and why we moved this item up is we also wanted to have all of the interns have an opportunity to make a presentation to the board. So since he is moving on, and again, congratulations, he is taking advantage of his last days here to make a presentation to the board. And we appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Vincent. This is the second of our interns to present at committee, so we're excited to see the rest.
And the remainder of the presentation for the engineering staff report, we have the project budget updates as well as the contracts.
But we're not done yet. So Director Deere, did you have any questions?
No, of course.
And Director Gray?
I'm fine.
So-
No questions. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
So then we can go ahead and move on. And thank you very much.
If there's no questions about the project budgets or the contract list on packet page 123, that concludes this staff report.
So do we have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Director Deere?
No.
Director Gray, any other questions? Okay, if not, then we will move on to item 6A. And that's a water agreement for the Title 22 filters, 3, 4, and 6 rehabilitation replacement project. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item will be brief and will be presented by Barca Masurlian, our Executive Manager of Operations.
Thank you, EJ. Directors, late last year, the Engineering and Operations Committee considered several alternative approaches for the rehabilitation of our filter basins. There's 11 of them. We presented 3 alternatives. One was to rehab all of them. The other was to rehab 3 and then at some sequence later on. And the third alternative was a programmatic approach. The committee selected a hybrid of 2 of the alternatives that was presented and approved us proceeding with soliciting bids for the rehabilitation of 3 filters with some crack repair improvements on one of the walls. So in December 6, we issued a bid solicitation and the bids were due this morning. As of when we posted this agenda, we were due this morning. However, we've since decided to postpone the bid due date to encourage, possibly encourage more bids to come in. And so the new bid due date is January 31st. So while initially the purpose of this staff report was to kind of give you an update before we bring the award recommendation at the January board meeting, we now propose bringing that back in February to committee first with all the bids, and then February board with the committee's approval. No action recommended at this point with this reporting.
Okay. Any questions for the audience?
No, thank you.
Director Dune, Director Gray? So how many bids came in today?
We decided to postpone the bids,
Or would you postpone them completely?
so we did not receive any. Yesterday, we postponed it.
And that's because you anticipated only.
There were several contractors that attended the pre-bid meeting. One of the things that we offer whoever attends is that if you want to go back and visit the site, you can ask us in a way to encourage them to put in a bid. And so one of them reached out and we took them out to the site. They've indicated that they have more questions that we need to answer. The questioning period has lapsed. And so what we decided to do is open the questioning period up and then extend the bid due date to make sure that we get potentially one other contractor to come in. There were 6 company representatives attending the pre-bid meeting. If that's any indication of how much might come in. Yeah, so that's the reason why we decided to postpone it.
So did you, besides the one that you just referred to, did you get a lot of other questions from other contractors or?
I'm not sure that our director can come back and see. I know we received some questions, but the project manager for this project is not here today. He's on vacation. But we can certainly send a response back to see how many questions.
Just what's the level of interest in the 6 that came? Have you,
There has been some questions from several contractors, but I don't know how many, and it seems that there is some interest. There's a secondary reason too, Director, as part of our admin code. There is a 7-day count, a 7 calendar day period that we should allow any bidder the opportunity to address the board after the bid's open. And between now and the next board meeting, it's 5 days. So that's was a secondary reason for us to also say, okay, we can potentially get another contractor interested in the project, and we should adhere to our admin code and bring it in next month.
thank you. All right, we have one other, or one next item, which is the solids handling improvement projects preliminary design report. Can we do that in 10 minutes?
We shall do our best. I know John Benner does an amazing job of presenting these items, but why don't we give an overview? Clearly the information, I know that there's a great deal of information in the packet as well as an excellent presentation, but why don't we throw it over to you, John? Do your best with the time and we can obviously engage this conversation further at the board meeting if necessary.
Afternoon, directors. So the update on the solids handling project in page 19, but we'll start the presentation on page 26.
Yeah, by the way, you also have 2 committee members here, even if you have to leave, so we
Yeah.
can carry on without you.
But I'd like to, at least on this one, I want to hear what.
Of course, of course.
When I've done a dry run of this presentation, it was 20 minutes, so
Okay.
we haven't got time. I think so. But if we go to packet page 27, these are the topics we're covering. So I put a summary at the start here because the presentation is going to be pretty long, but I can effectively summarize a couple of the main points here. The first section, so I think the first 5 slides are a maintenance update. Effectively, this is showing the work that Veolia has done since the condition assessment report came out in November of last year. So if you remember, that condition assessment report had some items in there that required further maintenance. So Veolia have gone through and rectified quite a few of those issues. So just some images there showing the work they've done in the last couple of months. The project background section is the usual project background section where we talk about the fact that These presses need rehabilitation. They were installed in 1995. Most of the ancillary equipment installed then as well and has been replaced. They're well beyond their useful life. We conducted a number of studies over the years, and those studies have shown ultimately that the refurbishment is the most cost-effective option. The next slide just shows what it is we're planning to refurbish. I've been over this before, so we can skip past this. But effectively, we're doing a mixture of replacement of some items, some components that failed or are well beyond their useful life, refurbishment of some other components, and then retaining some components that don't need to be replaced. Next slide, please. So the next few slides here, this was a committee request in November to come back again with a new look at the original options we looked at in 2022. So this table is one that we presented back then in 2022, and it goes through what each study looked at and what the recommendations were of each study. So in 2018, the feasibility study that went into a pilot study, the recommendation there was to replace the presses with a centrifuge system. In 2021, we re-looked at the whole idea of doing a refurbishment or replacement and looked to see whether we could just discharge directly to the sewer. In 2022, we re-looked at those options again with new costs, and that study recommended refurbishing the PFFPs at the current presses. The main reason for that recommendation is that when you take into account O&M costs over the next 10, 15 years, the refurbishment actually comes out as far more fiscally responsible than replacing the whole system with a centrifuge. And in addition, discharging to sewer, the composition of our sludge meant that the ordnance-based rates were incredibly high year on year. And we also had significant reticence from both LACSD and LASAM concerns about whether their sewer system and treatment processes could actually handle the sludge we were proposing. So alternative one, the refurbishment, came out as the most cost-effective option. And then we looked, after we received that study in 2022, we used that same cost analysis method to look at just simply maintaining the presses, or we call the do-nothing alternative, which is option A. So we ended up with an option A, option B, option C, which was the new centrifuge, option D, which was discharging sewer, and option B, the refurbishment, came out as the most cost-effective option. Next slide, please. So this was the original analysis in 2022 where we did the 15-year net present value, and it showed that option B was the most cost-effective over the 15 years. And then next slide. So what's happened now is that we've received the PDR, the 30% design, from the design consultant. That's the latest submittal. It's attachment B of this staff report, is the first draft of this PDR we received on December 19th. And that had a new cost estimate included. So they've updated all of the costs on the project to current costs and included recommendations for what we should be, what they recommend we include in the construction, moving some things around that I'll get onto in a moment. But effectively, we've then reanalyzed the other options in comparison, and the refurbishment still comes out ahead in terms of cost benefit over the 15-year period, although it has moved the return investment from the 4.7 years that we mentioned before to about 5.5 years. And I'll go into, in a moment, some methods that we've got to reduce that further. So next slide, skip past the next few. The slide after this is just the design schedule. Some things have moved out slightly. And then next slide is the overview of the PDR. So as I mentioned, we received it in 2019, in December 19, last year, the first draft. We had a workshop with the consultants last Thursday. There is scope for a second draft and a second workshop before the final submittal, but we anticipate we probably won't need that. The workshop was very productive. The PDR has given a 30% design for the refurbishment, a plan to undertake temporary dewatering during the construction, an estimated construction schedule, recommendations, costs and timings for pre-procurement of materials, and a Class 4 AACE, so Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering, cost estimate of the construction. So there are significant changes that this PDR recommends, namely that the PDR recommends taking the presses offline for up to 10 months during construction. Originally, the plan was to take one press down at a time and put the other press in double duty. Unfortunately, this has been deemed very high risk. The presses are struggling to cope with the current loading. And so putting one press in double duty leaves us with no redundancy if that press fails while we're refurbishing the other press. And it was also deemed that that would extend the construction time. So the consultant recommends in the PDR just taking down the whole system for 10 months and having the contractor operate a temporary dewatering system during that period on a fixed cost basis. So this is a big change to the construction and to the way we were planning on doing this project. The other big change is that initially we planned to undertake most of the material procurement themselves and pre-procure it, mostly due to the excessive lead times that occurred due to the COVID, the pandemic, and other lead time issues at the time. However, those lead times are now back to near pre-COVID levels. So the consultant recommends moving most of about 90% of the equipment procurement back onto the contractor, which is what we would normally do during a capital project, to remove the risk of if a procurement delay occurs, the risk is no longer on the district as to whether that causes a delay to the project, the risk is now on the contract. So those are the two main recommendations in the PDR, and they have affected both the cost and the schedule. We can move past the next few slides. They give some detail on the different options, why we've chosen them, how they affect the cost, but we can probably, this is pre-procurement. If we go to the next slide, these are the items that we are procuring. Sorry, the previous one. The previous slide is items that we're still pre-procuring ourselves. So we've still got to pre-procure these steel sludge conditioning tanks due to the lead time. And then the next slide, these are items that the contractor will now be procuring according to the recommendation of the PDR. So effectively, there's a markup there of $490,000. Effectively, what this means is the PDR recommends the district pays an additional $490,000 to move the risk of procurement onto the contractor. So there's a potential there that we can reduce cost if we'd like to take that risk on ourselves and procure those items ourselves. Next slide, please. So this is probably the main slide here. Effectively, because of moving all of these new things onto the construction contract, the construction cost estimate has increased from 8 million in 2022 to 20 million. So a significant increase. Most of this is due to that additional procurement being moved from the district pre-procurement onto the construction contract, and also from moving, when we take down the presses and the contractor operates temporary dewatering system, we'll effectively be spending no O&M to manage the presses because we're no longer operating them. So we're moving O&M costs off the contract as well. So we're effectively moving a lot of our O&M costs for the year into. But it means that the total project cost has increased from 15.3 to $23.9 million. But when we take into account those O&M savings that we're moving onto the contract and refinery funding that we've already received, that means the actual district expenditure currently sits at $17.6 million, which moves that 4.7-year ROI onto 5.5 years. Next slide. This is just the same information in a table format across the years. And then the next slide. That's the previous estimate and where it crosses, and then the following slide is the new estimate. And then on the next slide, we have some cost reduction opportunities. I've mentioned the pre-procurement moving that back onto the district. The main one, though, there is at the bottom, secure additional external funding. So if we go to the next slide. The funding summary here, this is the main point of the presentation, really, although we've received $2.6 million of refinery funding to date. But those allocations were based on prior project budgets. So with the new project budget of $23.9 million in total, we can go back to the refineries, issue letters to them notifying that the project budget has increased and seek additional funding. That additional funding would be, in addition, $2.7 million in funding through the existing agreements. So that means that takes our West Basin expenditure down to $14.9 million and brings our ROI back into that 4.7 years that we've committed to. So we're looking at a potential adjusted ROI of 4.6 years, early 2028. The next slide is just kind of a summary of that, showing how the total project cost can be reduced through savings and securing funding. So we're currently on line 3 there. We have secured refinery funding that's currently got the project district expenditure at $17.6 million, 5.5-year return on investment. But we believe we can get additional refinery funding to bring the expenditure down to $14.9 million, where we get it back into 4.6-year return on investment. So we're looking at a return on investment of this project at early 2028. And I believe, sorry, I had run over that. Yeah, the last slide is just the next project schedule, and then we're done. Hopefully, I got enough information in there for you.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams,
No, thank you.
Hmm?
No, thank you.
Director Deere?
No.
Director Gray? Make these quick because I do need to leave.
Nothing.
Um,
Thank you.
the overall budget has increased multiple times, but from the last time you made the presentation to this time, if I understand it correctly, you went from about 21,700,000 to 23.
The last time I presented this was 15.3 to 23.9.
To 23 now. And one of the items discussed in the staff report is really the kind of the financing. And we're concerned about all the issues associated with SC Little Plant and what the future of the SC Little Plant is, and how much investment, and where we should be making that investment. Needs a lot of discussion. And one of the things we're looking at here is that we may be financing this, if I understand the fiscal impact discussion in the staff report.
That is correct.
So in financing it, I understand that you think you're gonna pay back that by the operational savings. But still, we're incurring debt, and that will be rolled into our long-term debt. Or is that short-term debt that you intend to pay back on the short term? What's the implication of that discussion?
So I believe, okay. So this was the recommendation of Margaret before she left. She recommended this to perfect candidate for short-term funding due to the potential quick return on investment. And so she suggested this would be a perfect candidate for use of that. I'm not commercial, but financial. But
I'm just intrigued, and I would like to maybe see some further write-up on that, how that's gonna be done.
But yeah, to directly answer your question, it is short-term funding, short-term loan is what we were considering for the project, and we'll be happy to describe that in more detail.
Well, we have done short-term financing, but we end up most of the times rolling that up after 2 years into long-term financing and our long-term debt. And it continues to increase, and we're making investments in a plant that has a lot of questions associated with it. And as to its future. So in considering that, it behooves us all to really know where the money's coming from, how much future money we may be tying up, and ultimately how that's gonna get paid for.
With the last slide that John showed there with the different years of ROIs, the only way we could see that this project financially does not make sense would be if the City of Los Angeles will give us an MBR type of quality water within those years that we are projecting. Otherwise, the O&M cost is what we've calculated would be even higher than the project itself. You can see the number of years there. So if there was an MBR project guaranteed that's going to come in prior to 2030, then potentially this project may not be necessary. But otherwise, all the alternatives that we looked at, all the analysis that we did, and looking at these next few years, it seems like this project is what is most financially responsible avenue for us to take.
I appreciate all of that, but I've also seen a lot of the financial predictions. Because that predictions, and as time moves on, the numbers change, and I've never so far seen anything change to the positive. It's always been kind of in the negative direction, meaning that some of the assumptions made tended to be conservative and things cost more and we're in a worse situation than a better situation. So we do need to be very careful. But I would appreciate if you could bring back some further evaluation of that. With that, I have to leave. Mr. Williams, you are in charge.
Oh, thank you.
can end the meeting. There's one more item,
What?
or you can continue. The last item is the operations update.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
I think we should go on to the next item.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is our monthly operations report. For this presentation, we have our next team of operations staff led by Uzi Daniel, the manager of operations.
Seconds to change the cast. The engineering understudies. Thank you. Good afternoon, directors. We're starting on page 124 and these glasses of our packet for the operations update. We have a small presentation. Real briefly, some of the highlights, just so the board knows that even during the holidays, even with many people out on vacation, there are a number of small incidents. We took care of some leaks. Seems like a lot of people are having fun on the holidays, hitting some of our airbags. And we even coordinated some issues with MWD and some of our purveyors who had some concerns over water quality, brought them together with their EOC, took care of that during the holiday season. We continue to work on and had some good progress with Emerson. Again, we get a lot of updates. We have an aged, seasoned system, our SCADA system. And so sometimes finding the people who can repair that, they have to bring them out of retirement or get them from other states. And so I can relate, we've been working on that as well. Success, good coordination between all the departments and all the different contractors. So, and I say thank you to everyone for that. Some of the other highlights, I've mentioned this a few times. It'll be brought up possibly on our compliance. We have another one of those proprietary systems, our fire control system at the plant, Johnson Controls. One of the situations is proprietary. They've also purchased a lot of the competitors over the years. So we all know that that makes it a little more challenging. We've been working closely with the fire department, utilizing someone that they even recommended for us. We'll probably be bringing back to the board some information to see if it might just be better. It's recommended to change out the entire system. If we can't get response, also our procurement team has been working almost 6 months with that company on there. No one agrees on their terms and conditions. So we will provide more information. We're doing some good faith efforts, engaging with the fire department to make sure they know we're not neglecting this. Veolia's had to do 24/7 fire watch in the meantime.
Which fire department?
El Segundo. I will give you an example at the DLD building. Our fire control system is not proprietary. So every 5 years, we can go out to bid for someone to monitor, maintain the system. As we all know, that leads to good competition. And let's be honest, better customer service. So we'll be bringing more information to the board on that by next meeting. In addition, we have we'll hear a little bit more on compliance. A lot of activity, quarterlies and annual reports coming up. And the new brine permit. We received the brine permit for their every 5 years for ECL. And now at JMM at Carson, that one is up. The hearing is the 22nd of February. We're submitting our draft comments today. Everything looks pretty good, pretty standard. And that's moving forward as well. And with that, I think if you would like to hear or see the brief presentation, we can continue.
Please do.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Suzanne, starting on slide page 127.
Good afternoon, directors. So we'll begin with the water quality report As you can see toward the right side, at the end of the year, there's some swings of water quality, but overall, the water quality has improved, being more stable. There's probably some analyzer that just packed out and needed to be cleaned. So overall, the water quality has improved compared to earlier 2023. So that's turbidity. Moving on to the next slide, solids also can see that the solids coming in was also have been decreased and be more stable. Next slide, please. This is the monthly maintenance activity highlights. We continue to do a lot of pinning.
A little louder, please.
Okay. Phase 5 membrane needs a lot of TLCs. We went to the board earlier last year to get membrane replacement because of certain issue. We just got some of the membranes, but we're evaluating options when we will pull the triggers in replacing the membranes. But in the meantime, it is impacting our maintenance crew to continue tying up a lot of resources to do pinnings, and it may eventually impact barrier production. Other items, as you can see, we're doing regular inspections of equipment, and there was also a break in the RO3 lines in December, so that also limited our barrier production. Finally, the last photos on the right, that is a photo of the incident that Uzi brought up, the brine line airbag incident. Next slide, please. Here's the beginning of the production of recycled water production reports. As you can see, in December, we were down compared to last year as well as our budget. The main reasons due to the barrier was down as a continuation, a result of the November power outage. We had to resolve some of the communication issues, so we could not bring barrier online for most of December. Before I want to dive into details on the different recycled water product line productions, please go to the next slide. I'll give you a little more details. As I said, the main reason for the big gap in the production was the barrier. We were down compared to last month, was almost well, compared to budget is 61% off. And other things I want to highlight is that the JMM boiler feed, they are in the middle of their big turnaround. Unfortunately, they did not inform us earlier, but we just got notice that this mini turnaround or major turnaround will be going on for another month. So we will see that below budget numbers continue on through January and February. And for Torrance, they just completed their big turnaround, so they're ramping up on their production. So next slide. Again, this is just another comparison to last fiscal year. And again, barrier was the major gap in production this past month. I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Good afternoon, directors. Very busy month for environmental compliance activities. Most the things that I think are the most important are the brine permit renewal inspection at Carson. That's getting ready to renew our brine permit. Meter calibration reports. We have to turn those into LA County Sanitation District. Our big fees for all of our state water resources permits are due. We have quarterly surcharges that are also due. Some things a little out of the ordinary. We had the response to the fire alarm deficiency, which Uzi mentioned, that goes to also got no fire department. And our notice of public hearing was posted in the Daily Breeze for the upcoming public hearing for the brine permit, Carson brine permit. Slow month on samples, a little under 500. Next slide, please. This is just an update from the last time we showed this in the package. This is a timeline of the ECL, Edward C. Little brine permit versus the Carson brine permit. So you see with Edward C. Little, we are coming upon our implementation date, our effective date of February 1st, where we're just getting started with Carson. We have received the tentative permit last month, posted the public notice hearings. Written comments on the permit tentative draft are due today by 5 o'clock. And then, as Uzi mentioned, we'll have the public hearing at the regional board offices on February 22nd, with the new permit taking effect March 1st, excuse me, April 1st. Next slide, please. And this just highlights that there is a lot of new requirements with these permits. A lot of special studies, a lot of reports that need to be submitted on the date that the permit becomes effective. So we have stormwater requirements, we have maintenance requirements, we have spill cleanup contingency plans, technical reports on preventative and contingency plan, investigations for toxic reduction evaluation, just in case we reach a level where our discharge is toxic. A big one is the climate change effects vulnerability asset assessment and mitigation plan, which looks at the facility as a whole and how it relates to climate change. For ECL, we have special studies of PFAS. We already did that with Carson with the last round of permits. And of course, the toxicity specials, species sensitivity screening, where we look at the top smelt and the red abalone and kelp and see how our water, how our discharge affects the Pacific Ocean. And that is all for environmental compliance.
Directors. Excuse me,
Yes.
On the hearings,
Yes.
how often do our staff attend the hearings?
We attended the last one. The permit cycle is every 5 years. So when we reach a point where we're at a tentative draft of the permit and we have to attend a public hearing, it's just a requirement of the permit process. So we attended last time when was the last hearing? I'm sorry. Last hearing was in November of last year for the Edward C. Little facility. And this year it'll be in February for the Carsons.
But it was a consent item, so we attended
Oh,
it.
okay.
So it's not,
Wouldn't it be a good idea for our staff to always attend? Since it's every now and then more than a regular thing, right?
they have monthly meetings. The items that pertain to us are, like, as I mentioned, every 5 years.
But it's a good point to bring up. I will tell you, when I first started at West Basin, and EJ remember this, we used to have where a lot of our similar sister, as we call it, agencies, we would attend each other's hearings. And that was really important when recycled water, indirect potable reuse was sort of a newer thing. Where regulators also needed a level of comfort, so the industry would come together. But it's become, and maybe it's a good thing, a little more routine, so it doesn't seem like people do that. It's not a bad suggestion, but
I think you should.
It's important to note, back in November, I believe we had intended to send a group of West Basin staff members to attend the hearing. My understanding was that due to some other issues, they went to an all virtual meeting.
Public unrest.
yeah, and they also, yes, that's true. You're right. That's when there was a strike, was a state, and so we were torn between observing picket lines, so they went to virtual meeting.
but it was a consent item as well, so their staff had let us know, maybe join in case it's pulled and otherwise.
So we prepare for any situation. We'll do the same thing this time.
Very good. Thank you. So,
So this is our monthly potable water customer service update for December. I just wanted to highlight a shutdown that is currently ongoing. Metropolitan Water District is relining a section of their second lower feeder that affects the city of Lomita and Cal Water. That work started December 15th and is scheduled through April 26th of this year. The city of Lomita is currently being supplied from service that's off of the Palos Verdes feeder. And Cal Water is currently not using service for WB40 for the duration of that work.
WD-40.
WB40, pardon me. However, Met did work with Cal Water to conduct some flow testing in early December to make sure that they would have enough capacity from the Palos Verdes feeder during that shutdown. So we can provide further updates when the scheduled work is completed as well. Next slide, please. This is our update for the potable water sales through December of last year. The demand was 6,787 feet for the month of December, very close to the budgeted amount of 6,952 acre feet. So a slight difference of 165 acre feet from our projected budget amount. Next slide. Again, this is our monthly update for the recycled water distribution system activities. I did want to highlight and just expand on one of the leaks that we did have last month was from a brine line in El Segundo. The leak was caused, as Lucy mentioned, from a car that hit an air vacuum valve, which severed a 2-inch HDPE line. Next slide. And this is shows the location of where that air valve is located in El Segundo. It's located about a half mile west on El Segundo Boulevard from Sepulveda. Next slide. And it just shows a couple of photos of the air valve after it was hit on the December 26th. As I mentioned, the pipeline was severed from the 2-inch line that serves the air valve. Inframark and our subcontractor responded to the repair, so they were able to implement a temporary repair with compression fittings to stop the leak. But since it's an HDPE pipeline, we do need to schedule a separate contractor to come back and complete the final repair, since the lines have to be fused together. So we're anticipating we're going to schedule that the first week of February to complete that work. Next slide. And this is a update for a new site that was connected to recycled water, the Torrance Tech Center. It's an industrial park in Torrance, the former Toyota facility. There's 4 new buildings that will be using recycled water for irrigation. So the cross connection test with the help of the Department of Public Health was completed last month. So that is currently using recycled water. We anticipate that that'll be an additional 8 acre feet per year of recycled water sales. That completes our report. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
very good. Questions? Anyone online? Director Gray?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Carry on.
Right. That concludes our information calendar, Mr. Chairman. I want to say thank you to staff, both engineering operations, for moving through those items. That was a lot of information presented fairly quickly. So thank you very much to the committee for your patience as we move through that. We're here to answer any questions, but that does bring us to closed session items, which we have none today.
Very good. Then we'll move on to item 8, director's comments. Future agenda items.
Could we change the meeting date to 3 o'clock regularly instead of 4 o'clock?
Why?
Why?
You like 3 o'clock, yeah.
We can also, I like it even earlier, but I know
like 1 o'clock.
The chair to have it late in the afternoon, but
Well, it might change. We're having a changing of chairs coming
we're
up.
gonna open. Can do chair.
We might have it at 8 in the morning or something. I mean,
That's a good idea.
very good. How about, oh, it looks like we should adjourn now. Anyone objects? Well, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.